Hello children, today we are going to learn about water. In the last video, we learned about air, the importance of air in our life. Today, we learn about water. Just like air, water is also one of the basic necessity in our life. Our planet Earth appears blue in color. It is said that it is because of the oceans and rivers and the other water bodies that we have. Almost 71% of the Earth's surface is covered with water. We have rivers, lakes, ocean, pond, well, even underground water. These water that is available to us is used by us in different ways also. Water, when it is heated or cooled, it changes its form. We learned in chapter 5, solids, liquids and gases, that one form of water is changed into another form either by heating or cooling. So when water is heated or cooled, it changes its form due to the change in the arrangement of molecules. Let us take a look at the changes that happens or the process of heating and cooling water. The first process is evaporation. Evaporation is the process by which water changes into water vapor on heating. When you boil water, you can see that after some time the water vapor or a steam like thing starts coming from the beaker. That is actually water going or escaping out as water vapor. Why is this change happening? Have you ever thought about it? There is an arrangement of molecules which you have already studied. Arrangement of molecules for solids, liquids and gases. Here we will take a look at the arrangement of molecules in water, because water is changed into water vapor on heating. So how are molecules arranged in water? They are loosely packed, isn't it? Just like I make you 6 or 5 of you sit in one bench, or 4 of you sit in one, 5 or 6 means you are tightly packed. 4 of you sit in one bench. You have space between you, you are comfortable. But when I start putting fire under your chair or your bench, what happens? Some of you will jump out. Some will be afraid if the teacher will say anything, they will sit, adjust and sit, isn't it? Or somebody else do it, you will be afraid of them, you will adjust. But what about the others? 1 or 2 will jump out. So what happens to their space? That space remains vacant. Just like that, when we heat water, the molecules in water escapes out. When these molecules escape out, the space of that molecules remains vacant. When that space remains vacant, the space between the remaining molecules increases. Suppose 4 of you were sitting in one bench, 2 of them jumped out, the remaining 2 are sitting there, isn't it? So the remaining 2 will have enough space between them. So same way, when water is heated, the molecules escapes out. Some molecules escapes out and the remaining molecules have too much of space between them, and if they have too much of space between them, they are changed into a different form of water. What is it? That is a gas. So liquid, when it is heated, it changes into gas. The picture shows you steam. I don't know if you can see it very clearly. The picture shows you steam coming out of the tumbler or the beaker when you boil water. Okay, so water changing into water vapor on heating is called evaporation. When rain, after a rain, you can see water will be there on the ground, isn't it? Roadsides and all. But if one day sun shines properly, if it is a hot day after 2 or 3 rainy days, you can see that within one day or within the afternoon, the whole water gets evaporated, isn't it? The water is gone from there. You don't know where it goes, isn't it? But it is all gone from there. Some seeps into the ground, some or majority will be evaporated by the heat of the sun. As on rainy days, the sun is not shining, that is why the water settles down. If one day sun shines, what happens? All the water will be changed into water vapor. That is because of the heat of the sun. The sun's heat heats the water. It is not only the water in the road that settles in the road. The water in the sea, river, ocean, lake, pond, well, everywhere, when the sunlight falls on it, water will be evaporated. Evaporation takes place. When you put your clothes, wash your clothes and put it outside for drying, if it is a sunny day, you can see that it dries within the afternoon, very faster. But if it is a rainy day, it takes more time for it to dry, isn't it? That is because the water from the clothes is evaporated due to the heat of the sun if you put it outside. Whereas on a rainy day, you don't have sun shining so brightly, so what happens? It takes more time for water to evaporate. So that means there are certain factors which helps in evaporation. Okay, just like we told, if it is a sunny day, if it is a hot day, evaporation takes place faster. So we can take a look at the other important factors which helps in increasing the rate of evaporation. Evaporation takes place at a faster rate when there is strong wind. Even if the sun is not too bright, if there is wind blowing, what happens? The clothes will dry faster. That is why you put your clothes under the fan for drying faster. That is because if there is strong means it is not too strong wind, okay, the normal wind, but a little bit more faster blowing wind. So that not like the normal day. If it is some days we feel that too much wind is coming, that a little bit faster wind, that's all, not like the normal one. It dries the clothes faster because it helps in increasing the rate of evaporation. Second one is the exposed surface of water is large. If you take water in a small beaker and if you take water in a big beaker, you can see that the water from the bigger beaker will be evaporated faster because the exposed surface, the area on which the sunlight or heat can absorb water is more. So when sunlight can fall on more area, more water will be evaporated and the level of water will decrease faster, or evaporation of water takes place at a faster rate in the beaker which has a wide mouth or a larger exposed area. So exposed surface area of the object or water is also very, very important in case of evaporation. Third one, the temperature of the surrounding is high. That means when it is a hot day, evaporation takes place at a faster rate. And the last one is the air is dry. We know that there is moisture present in the air. The water vapor that goes up, sometimes it remains around us, that creates moisture around us. And if the air is dry, that is only on a cloudy day, okay? On a sunny day, all the water vapor that is evaporated goes up. So the air around us will be dry, and if the air around us is dry, more and more water can be evaporated. If the air around us has water content or moisture, less amount of water, because already there is water vapor around us or moisture around us. So too much of water vapor cannot be evaporated or water cannot be evaporated again. So the rate of evaporation decreases if there is moisture around us. But on a dry day, or if the air is dry, what happens? The air surrounding us will not have moisture, so too much of water can be evaporated. So these are the factors which affect the rate of evaporation. First one, the air, there is strong wind. Second one, the exposed surface of water is large. Third one, the temperature of the surrounding is high. And fourth one, the air is dry. I hope the factors are clear for you. The first one is if there is strong wind. Second one, the exposed surface of water is large. Third one, the temperature of the surrounding is high. And fourth one, the air is dry. With all these factors, the rate of evaporation increases. Now next is when you cool water. We told about heating of water. On cooling of water also, water changes its form. When you cool water or water vapor, the water vapor changes into water on cooling. That process is called condensation. Water vapor changes into water on cooling. In this picture, you can see that there is black tea made in a pot, and this you might have experienced at your home. You make tea, after some time the hot tea is poured into a glass, you cover the glass with a lid. After some time when you open that lid, you can see water drops start coming out. Is it falling down? Just like you make a curry. You make the curry, cover the curry and go. When you are going to take the curry for eating, what happens when you open the lid, you can see that water droplets fall into the curry. You might have seen it at your home. That is because the hot thing or the hot tea or hot curry was covered. Hot object means it always produces water vapor. Okay, so what happens, this water vapor is stopped or it is blocked by the lid. It remains there. After some time, the black tea or the curry, it cools down on its own. It will not be hot always, isn't it? It cools down its own. So when it cools down, the water vapor that was trapped with the lid also cools down. So this water vapor, when it cooled down, it changes into what? Water again. That process is called condensation. So evaporation and condensation, two very important processes undergone by water. Water changes into water vapor on heating. That process is called evaporation, and water vapor changes into water on cooling. That process is called condensation. And you can see a variety of forms of condensation of water around us if you look around. Let us take a look at what are the important change in form of water vapor due to condensation. First one is fog. You might have seen this thing when you have gone a trip to hilly areas. Fog is occurring or fog is formed when tiny drops of water, thick clouds of tiny drops of water forms just above the land or just above water. They are actually appearing as a smoke-like thing. We feel that it is smoke, but actually there are thick clouds of tiny drops of water, so that you can imagine how tiny the drops of water will be. Otherwise it would have flown, isn't it? So here it appears like smoke, but actually it is thick clouds of tiny drops of water, and this forms just above the land or just above the water. See this picture, you can see it is just above the land. Here also it is just above the land. This is the main problem that we face when we go to hilly areas in the early morning and late evening. Because there will be fully covered with fog, you could not see what is happening just in front of you. If you are driving at all, it is very difficult for you, for your parents. You will not be driving, isn't it? So it is very difficult to drive because your vision will be blocked by this fog, because it is like smoke. Okay, this is the fog that is formed just above water. Very beautiful picture, isn't it? So this is formed when thick clouds of tiny drops of water forms just above land or water. That is also a process of condensation of water vapor. Okay, water vapor condenses and forms these tiny droplets of water, clouds of tiny droplets of water. Second one is dew. When water vapor in the air condenses and appears as droplets on the ground, you might have seen this, isn't it? After a cold night, the very next morning when you wake up, you can see that there will be water droplets on the leaves, water droplets on your car, water droplets on your bike, isn't it? Or whatever thing is kept outside your house, it will have drops of water. That drops of water is called dew. That happens after a cold night, only after a cold night. Okay, the water vapor remains in the air, and because of the cool atmosphere, the water vapor also cools, and this water vapor appears as droplets on the leaves or any other objects that is placed in the outside of the house. Okay, third one is frost. When the dew, I told you after a cold night, the water vapor cools down into dew, isn't it? This dew, if it is a very, very cold area, after a cold night, normal areas it will be dew, but very cold areas, instead of water vapor changing into water droplets or instead of water vapor changing into dew, it freezes. Okay, the temperature is very low, it freezes, and this dew freezes into frost. You can see that instead of water droplets on the leaves, you can see ice like things. Okay, ice on the leaves. That is because instead of changing it into dew, this water vapor has changed into frost because the climate is too cold. Okay. Next one is when raindrops pass through a very cold region of the atmosphere, it changes into hail. Okay, ice cube like thing. Now it is not cube, ice like thing. When we break ice, we will get a thing like hail. Okay, actually it is the water droplets, but it passed through a very cold region of the atmosphere. Atmosphere has different temperatures, isn't it? So when it passes through a very cold region of the atmosphere, before it comes down, the water droplets or the raindrops changes into or freezes into hail. Okay, so actually we are not creating, it is atmosphere that is creating all these wonders. We call it hailstones because it is like stones. It is clear from the picture, isn't it? Hailstones. And the last one is snow. When water vapor is suddenly cooled because the climate is too cold, it freezes into tiny white snowflakes. This is snow. Very, very, very beautiful place, or we all dream of going to such places, isn't it? It's like a fantasy. We see it as a fantasy, but actually that is there. People experience life in these places. So very, very beautiful, isn't it? But when we go there, there will be difficulties what we have to face when there are so much of snowfall. But still we love going to such places. Okay. So these are the different forms of water which occurs due to the process of condensation. Okay. First one was fog. Fog is formed when thick clouds of tiny drops of water forms just above land or water. Second one, dew. When water vapor in the air cools down, it appears as droplets on the ground or on the leaves or vehicles and all, that is called dew. Especially happens after a cold night. Then frost, when the dew or surface water, because of the very cold climate, it freezes, it forms crystals called frost. Then hail, when rainwater passes through a very cold layer of the atmosphere, region of the atmosphere, it forms the raindrops freeze to form hailstones. And the last one, when water vapor is suddenly cooled due to the cool climate, it changes into snowflakes. Okay, this is the different forms of water due to condensation. So we learned about what is the importance of water. Evaporation and condensation, that is heating and cooling water. What are the different forms of water by cooling or condensation process? Now we are going to learn about underground water. I told you water is not only present in rivers, oceans, lakes, ponds, wells and all. It is also present under the ground. We have different layers of soil and different layers of rocks. Okay, the water that we throw away. Okay, the water that we throw away, the water that comes through rainfall, they all flow through the ground, isn't it? Some water flows and reaches or that meets the rivers and oceans. Some water seeps or penetrates into the ground. This water that penetrates into the ground, it passes through the topsoil. Topsoil means the outer layer of soil. Subsoil, the layer beneath the topsoil. Below that we have porous rocks. Porous rocks means the rocks which allow water to pass through it. Okay, and below that we have non-porous rocks which does not allow water to pass through it. So the water that seeps into the ground passes through topsoil, subsoil and porous rocks. So from here, this water passes through topsoil, subsoil and porous rocks and it settles here below the porous rocks. Okay. It cannot pass through the non-porous rocks. So it settles below porous and above non-porous rocks, in between non-porous and porous rocks. Okay, this water is called underground water and it is somewhat pure because the dust particles will be filtered just like a filter. The dust particles will be absorbed or that will be sticked to the layers of soil, just like we pour water, the tea through a strainer, the tea dust will remain in the strainer, isn't it? Just like that, the dust particles and dirt particles will stick on to the different layers of soil and by the time it reaches the underground, below the porous rocks, the water will be almost pure. Okay, but don't think that we can drink that water taking directly from there. No, we have to boil water, germs will be there. So, this water is called underground water. This water is taken from underground by digging wells, by using tube wells and all. We know that when we dig wells, we normally dig the soil. Last we will have some rocks, that is the porous rocks. When we break those rocks, we will get water, that is underground water. Okay, so tube wells and wells we use this underground water. The level of underground water in an area is called water table. The level of water in the level of underground water in an area is called water table. Some areas where there is too much of rainfall, there will be high water level. That means the water level, water table will be high. That means too much of underground water will be there. But some places where there is scarcity of rain, where there is less water available, we will have a very low water table. We have to dig too much in order to get water if it is a well and all. So that means underground water has a certain level. That level is called water table. So it is very essential to maintain that proper level of water table. Otherwise, in future we won't get underground water. We know that everywhere we are putting tiles, we are concreting, we are tarring the roads, everywhere we are covering the soil. So there is no space for water to seep through the soil and go underground. But that should not be done because water is very essential for our lives to sustain. Only if water seeps through the ground, we will get a very huge reservoir of underground water. If that is not present, all the water sources will start reduce or lacking the water. That means the water level of wells and ponds will start decreasing and that will affect our lives. So instead of concreting and tiling everywhere, we have to leave some space in our house premises for water to go underground. That is very essential and that adds to the balance of nature. The earth has a balance, isn't it? That adds to the balance of nature, which in turn affects our lives only. So water is very important. We have to save water, but the water that we obtain now is not at all pure. We know that it has too much of dirt and germs. We have to purify that water, and the purification process, it is a very interesting process to purify water. We can learn about the purification process in the next video. So hope evaporation, condensation and underground water is clear for you. So just read your textbook. Thank you.